All right, welcome everyone. My name is Jonathan Lipp, founder, director of the Big Apple Film Festival. We have our Spring 2025 festival coming up May 12th through the 15th at Look Dine-In Cinemas right here in New York City. And one of the films we'll be presenting is Martyr of Gowanus, which stars and is executive produced by Sawyer Spielberg, who is with us today. Sawyer, how you doing?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for being here.
And thanks for having our film too.
Of course, yes. It's really a great film, and what I love about it is it's a true New York film. It's a real New York movie. Really authentic, genuine New York City film. The film is written, directed by Brian Meere, and I would like to first just begin by speaking to Sawyer about how you became involved with the film, and tell us a little about the origin of it, the story, how it came about, and how you became connected to it, and how you and Brian decided to collaborate on this project.
Yeah. So I know before I met Brian and before I even heard of the project, I know that Brian, he was in New York during 2001, during 9/11. So this story is personal to him. And he wrote it, and then my manager, Scott Swaintek, sent it to me, and I read it, and I loved how honest the writing was. And I loved that it was a coming-of-age story, and it was all set in New York. I've always wanted to shoot in New York. So I read for it, and I got called back, and then I met Brian, and I hit it off with him right away. He was a super honest, down-to-earth fellow New Yorker, and started from there.
Great. So now this film, what I love about it is, as I mentioned, it's really a true, authentic New York film. But 9/11, in a way, is almost like symbolic. It almost kind of like plays a character in the film itself, and it sort of is representative.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love the story, because it didn't feel like this big political 9/11 film. It felt like a coming-of-age story of this middle-aged man in New York who was just stuck in his ways, and then this big event happens in the city, and it just sends him down this dark road, and then he has to choose between love and hate. And so, I always felt like Gavin sort of represented the average New Yorker going through that time. It wasn't very... I like those stories where it's just focused on one perspective. It doesn't, zoom out and see everybody's perspective. It just focuses on this one guy's journey. And it starts off as like this simple, playful buddy movie, and then it becomes, very tragic, and then it kind of leads into this bit of an action film. So it's got it all. But it's also, to me, when I read it, it was a love letter to New York. And, I've been living here now for 16, 17 years, so I wanted to do my best at representing, and saying I love you to New York. So...
Yeah, in fact, one of the really interesting things about this film is the use of the archival footage.
Yes.
And Brian did an incredible job of incorporating archival footage and weaving it into the production, so it communicates as being part of, it's like the archival footage is actually part of the film itself.
Yeah.
And I think he did a great job at that. I was curious, how did he go about acquiring all that archival footage? Did that all have to be licensed, or was that just all public domain?
Yeah. I think it did, but Brian's got decades in documentary filmmaking. He's a producer and an editor for the History Channel for a long time, so he's got all that archival footage already on hand. But when we were talking about the film, we wanted it to feel like a documentary. We wanted to keep it very simple, very naturalistic. We didn't want it to be performative. We didn't want it to be theatrical. We wanted to just keep it right off the cuff. And so we had Joey Dwyer, the Dwyer brothers, and his brother Tim come in, and they have experience with documentaries as well. And the way he shoots is very handheld. It's very natural. We shot like 4 takes each, and we just try to keep it as simple as possible because we knew that we were going to be adding in these archival footages. So we wanted the challenge as an actor was try to keep it as authentic and natural as the archival footage was going to be.
Yeah, I got the sense that Brian must have been involved with documentary film.
Yeah,
I can see with all that archival footage and the way that he cut it, you could see that he had background, in documentary.
Yeah.
So, now the Gavin character, Did you know right away when you read the script that this was the perfect character for you, that it reflected who you are, and your perception of that time?
I've never done anything like it before, and it felt gritty. It felt dangerous, especially when Gavin, he gets deeply affected by the attacks, and he goes down a rabbit hole, and then he becomes a bit unpredictable and dangerous. And I was like, I want to try that. I've played cops and military men and what have you, and I just wanted to do something completely raw and dangerous. And so I took it as an opportunity to really sort of explore that. And he keeps a lot of his feelings in. He doesn't express them outwardly. So I had to find a balance between keeping all that in, but also showing it within action, within little moments here and there. So it was like this dance that we did together on set. I love that. I really enjoyed that process.
Yeah. Without giving too much away, there's a relationship that forms between your character Gavin and a 15-year-old. How did the two of you work together? I mean, was that kind of an easy thing to do? Was there chemistry right away?
Angela Mickey did the casting for this, and she's extremely intuitive. Every single actor who came on the set, I hit it off with right away. And Dean was incredible. I mean, he brought a vulnerability to his character that was so easy to work with. And our scenes, I especially love our scenes because we were super tuned in, super dropped in. We were listening to each other, and I liked what we found. But he's a Brooklyn kid, his character, Angel, and he steals Gavin's fishing rod. So he goes after him. And then when he finds him, he runs into his sister, who he begins sort of falling in love with. And that starts another sort of journey for him. But they become, they go from being enemies to becoming sort of like brothers throughout the film because of this bond that he has with his sister. And the way that character develops, I thought was really well written.
It's really great to see that kind of relationship form, over the course of the film, and you sort of become like a big brother to Angel, which is really great. And and just the scenes, between you, the interaction, the dialogue is really well written, and you really feel it, and you really feel the chemistry between the two characters. So that I really loved. So New York City, in fact, plays sort of a character in this film as well. I mean, obviously 9/11, Brooklyn, the whole vibe is just, very New York. So I know you mentioned, you're a New Yorker now. You've lived here for quite some time. You've always wanted to shoot a film here in New York City. Did you feel that this was, the type of film that you've wanted to do in New York? Did you want to do a drama like this? Is this something you've been waiting for?
It's not something that I was sort of searching for. When it came across my desk, it was sort of like this like, it just felt right to me. I love history, and I love telling historical stories. So that was aligned with what I'm looking for. But this story and this part, it kind of came out of nowhere. But using New York as a backdrop, like, it adds a grittiness to the film that you wouldn't get if you shot somewhere else. We're an independent film, and we got permits for each location, but we still had joggers coming in the middle of our scene, like yelling at us, like saying, "This is not a fucking set. Like, get off! Like, what are you doing?" And so we had to deal with sirens going off and people yelling at each other, and just having that chaos and the atmosphere added so much to each scene, and I loved it. It added an edge to every moment. And people would be looking over and say, "What are you doing? What are you shooting?" And we actually had a few extras that were just walking by, and we just tapped them on the shoulder and said, "Hey, do you want to be in the scene? And you just have to sign here, and we'll give you a bit of money." And so every day was something new.
Yeah, I was going to say
it was not predictable, which added to Gavin's journey of his unpredictable future.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the challenge of making an independent film in New York City.
Yeah,
I mean, I know for myself, I've shot some independent films here in New York, and it's so difficult because you never know what's going to happen at any moment.
Yeah,
you got horns honking, you got people screaming, you got people jumping into the shot.
We actually got very lucky with our shooting days, with weather and with the locations we found. We shot a lot of it in Red Hook, which is known to be more of a quieter side of Brooklyn, and so anything that happened was sort of supportive of the film. Everything that all the chaos around us, we just kind of used and brought into the performance. Yeah. So we just immersed ourselves in the world, and these guys are from Brooklyn, so we got to use the actual location of where the film took place, which is not, it's not as, but we got lucky. We didn't come into any difficulty. When you get a permit in New York City for independent film to shoot in a certain location, they give you an NYPD police car, and they have 2 cops on standby if anything goes wrong. So that's part of the package that you get from, we got very lucky. Yeah.
Shooting a period piece for an independent film can be quite difficult. You pulled it off great. It comes across as real and authentic and honest, and you really feel that time period. It was really nostalgic, and one of the things I loved about it, I was in New York City on 9/11.
Oh, you were?
Yes. So seeing that portrayed, on film, for me, brought back a lot of memories, and I think a lot of other people who were in New York City during that time, would feel that as well.
Yeah.
But making a nostalgic, historic, period piece like that as an independent film can be difficult. Did you find it challenging?
We couldn't use any of the cars that were not dated correctly. So I think I tip my hat to Joey Dwyer and Tim Dwyer, the 2 DPs, because if they had to just zoom in. But we had an amazing wardrobe director, Celine, who she went through all the archives and she picked out a bunch of costumes from the time, and we had a great hair and makeup team who did all the makeup of that time as well, the hair, and so we because of the team, we were able to sort of capture that time. And then, if we did a little bit of post work to cut out a few modern things, there's a couple little Easter eggs that are not, time present, but if hopefully you won't get too many critics who are like, oh, that's not from 2001. That coconut water was produced in 2015. How dare you put that in the background? But we did our best with the budget that we had and the time we had and the team we had to really honor and capture this time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it definitely came across, very real. And luckily, it wasn't like you were portraying 1920s New York, or something like that.
I think that would have been a lot harder.
Like doing a film like Gangs of New York or something like that. Where you're really portraying a time period long ago. This, I think, probably was not as challenging. But I know what you mean. Like certain scenes, I guess you probably have to do close-ups if you have cars in the background.
Right.
If, you see a Tesla in the background, right? That could cause a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I mean, I didn't notice anything in there that threw me off.
Yeah, and we shot some of the interior upstate New York and Syracuse as well. So we had an amazing set decorator as well, and he came in and he turned these entire apartments and bars into the time, and we would rent them out for 3 days, and then we would just sort of completely stylize them to 2001 90s. And so we had a lot of that too, which added to it.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, like, if you have any advice for filmmakers who are making a low budget film as a period piece.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a filmmaker who's trying to accomplish something like that?
I think your team is everything. Make sure that you're all on the same page. Make sure that your team is with you on every decision. I don't think this film could have been made if it wasn't for the team that Brian put together. Your team is everything. It's hard to make independent film. You're on time constraints. But if you have the right team and if everyone's doing it because they believe in the story, then you can get it done. Yeah.
Was this a film that Brian has wanted to make for a while, or is this something that was just recent? Like, did he want to make this at the time of 9/11, going back all those years? Was this an idea he had in mind for all these years, or is this something more recent?
I don't know if it goes back that far, but I do know from what Brian's told me is that he's been in the documentary film world and producing and editing for so long that he really wanted to step out of that and go and direct. This is his first feature. So he wanted to go and be a good role model for his kids and just say fuck it and go out and get it done. And so the second he had the script and the second he started to attach actors and the second he started to get his first round of funding in, there was no turning back. And so he hit a point in his life where he said, I got to make this movie. It's time. He felt that pull that a lot of us filmmakers have, that sort of that drive, that need to tell a story. I don't know if it goes back that far, but this is one that he's written, and this is one that kind of came to life.
Yeah. One of the things I love about it is that it doesn't focus on the bigger picture, so to speak, of 9/11 and all of the, big names we know that were kind of associated with this time period. Yeah. It focuses on a very personal story primarily of this character, Gavin, and this teenage boy, Angel. Mm-hmm. And it really just focuses on, the what's going on in the lives of an ordinary New Yorker.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, is that something you preferred? Or were you happy about that it wasn't focusing on more broader?
Yeah, I was. I thought it was I actually thought it was a much more powerful perspective to take it from one guy's journey. Rather, I also think for me, like it's a big responsibility to tell a story about 9/11. I mean, it's such a historical moment in everyone's history. Everyone's got a story about it. Everybody connects to it. And I think I'd be too scared to go right into a full-on 9/11 movie. I don't think I have the to do that. And so I thought going the route of a coming-of-age story with this intense historical moment happening in the backdrop was just a much more powerful way to sort of tell that story. And so that's what drew me to the script in the first place.
And for those who see the film, I'm just curious, at the very end, there is a moment where there's a tribute to someone who I'm assuming Brian knew.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, for those, who do see the film, how is that person connected to Brian, to the filmmakers?
I think that Brian knew him. But he's a real guy. He's the only real guy who's mentioned in the story. He's brought up, I think, twice. Once with his Gavin's friend, and then another time with Gavin's father, who's played brilliantly by Holt McCallany. I want to give a shout out to him because he came in and he was terrific. He really hit it off. And so we wanted to. That was sort of like the one real, completely authentic character that was from that time who actually died in the towers of 9/11.
Yeah.
So we wanted to give him a nod at the end because his name was mentioned twice, and I do believe that Brian knew him.
Okay. Yeah. That moment at the end kind of really hits home because now it becomes very real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely.
And the audience leaves with a sense of reality.
Yeah. Definitely. And I wanted to ask you also about the music. There's some great music in there, especially in the opening credits. Actually, there's a really cool song going. I was wondering, is that original music written for the film?
No, that's we licensed that song. That original song, I think, is a David Bowie track that not many people know about. but it's called It Ain't Easy. Huh. And it's great. We had, in the first cut, we had a bunch of other music, but we wanted to make it more gritty. So we brought in that. We brought in some David Bowie. We brought in some hip-hop from the time. Luca, our composer who's from Italy, he did all the composition, all the score, all the music for the film. And I thought he added an entirely new layer to the storytelling, which wasn't there before. And it really brings you into the mood of each beat. Yeah.
I thought the music was perfect. It really set the tone.
Yeah. When I watched the latest cut, the first thing I did was go and buy that song on iTunes, and I played it on repeat for like a week. It's such a great track. Yeah. Totally. It just sets the tone in the beginning. Yeah.
And another great thing about the film, I just want to also just commend you on is this idea how it doesn't actually begin on 9/11. We lead up to it.
Yeah.
So it actually starts a few months back.
Yeah.
Which I like because you sort of get to know the characters a bit first. It starts, I believe, in the late spring or early summer prior to 9/11. You get introduced to the characters, you see what's going on, and then you kind of get up to the point where, everything happens, even into that morning.
Everybody's lives shift. And the mood changes forever. Yeah.
Right. And that's the great thing about it is that you see how everything changes from a few months back to now on that day. So
when I read scripts, it's really important to me that I'm invested in the characters by the first 20 pages. Because then I want to, once I know everybody and once I know who everyone is and what the relationship is to each other, then I can sit back and watch their journey. So I think Brian did a really good job at establishing all the characters in the first 20 minutes, so you can sort of sit back and see where they go. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah,
it's a nice compliment.
Yeah, definitely
appreciate that.
So I'm curious. You've been in the acting world now for quite some time. How is this film different from other projects you've been involved with?
Well, I love independent film. I've done quite a few now, but something about this team and this character was something I got to be vulnerable in a way that I haven't had the opportunity to. Whether I didn't have enough dialogue or there wasn't enough arc to my character or there wasn't, enough to grab onto, or it was a bigger production, so everything was very sort of stressful and loud and chaotic. This part really allowed me to be sensitive and vulnerable and sort of tap into something that I really wanted to itch as an actor. So I'm really proud of how it all came together, and Gavin he keeps everything internal, and so that I had to build that internal world, and that was a fun journey for me. I created music. I watched a bunch of films where other great actors I looked up to did that really well. I tried to sort of, if I could do 10% of what he did in that film, then maybe I'll be happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that the next character I play, I would like all that energy to be outwards and to be more forward. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. I like the Gavin character is interesting. He's kind of a loner. I mean, he's got some buddies and they hang out at the bar and stuff like that. But at the same time, he's also seems a bit isolated.
He's a lone wolf.
Yeah.
He's dealing with his own demons, his own trauma. And then he's a big drinker too, so he's got that going on. And then he can't seem to find the right girlfriend, and he's searching for something. He's searching for connection with people, and he finds it along the way. And then he finds himself, yeah.
And a couple other things about it. What I really liked about the nostalgia part of it is there's other elements besides 9/11 that bring out the time period. Like, for example, when they're in the bar, they're talking about baseball.
The
Mets.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Maybe the Mets were in the playoffs that year. I don't recall.
Yeah. No. We referenced the Mets. We referenced the Yankees. We referenced Eminem. We referenced Rosie O'Donnell. We had a lot of references. I knew of all these people, but I had to go back. Part of my research for the role was to go back and mark up my script of all the different references and how to pronounce their names. And because, when 9/11 happened, I must have been like 11 or 12.
Yeah, I was going to say you were in New York at that time.
I was living in California at the time.
Right. So
yeah, so I had to do a lot of research on all these like pop culture comments that were made throughout the script, so I knew what I was talking about.
Do you remember 9/11
I do.
when you were a kid? And your experience?
Even in California, my school was canceled. We spent the whole day at home watching the news, and everybody was on high alert, and everyone felt it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. It brought back a lot of memories, no doubt about it.
I had friends in England who heard that I was doing this film, that I worked with some colleagues of mine, and they were saying, yeah, we were all affected by it too. And they were across the pond.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it affected everybody.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Well, so now this film, you're also executive producer on it.
Yeah.
Now, do you produce a lot of the projects that you act in?
I think becoming a producer on this was sort of organic and accidental. The more that I got involved in the film, the more that I contributed. So they offered me a producing credit at the end. But yeah, I boxed at a gym with my friend, another great actor, former pro boxer, John Duddy. And John Duddy is a good friend with Holt McCallany. They're part of the same sort of Irish rep theater community in New York. And we were looking for the dad to play my dad. And we were halfway through shooting, and we still haven't shot the dad scenes yet. And we still haven't cast the dad. And I reached out to John. I said, hey, do you think Holt would be interested in reading the script and we can have a coffee? And John reached out to Holt, and Holt was luckily available at the time, and he read it, he loved it, and he jumped in. And then we met up, and we ran our scenes, and we got to know each other, and we broke the ice, and then we became good friends in the process. So I little things like that I did throughout the production kind of earned my producer credit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
As an actor, you've done smaller indie films, you've done some bigger films. Do you have a preference doing studio projects over indie film? Or
it doesn't matter to me. I really just focus on the work and the character, and if the character sings to me, then I'll audition for it. Yeah.
Nice.
I just love working. Independent theater, off-Broadway, regional, independent film, bigger budget films and TV shows, yeah.
Do you have a preference versus acting on stage versus on screen?
Well, my first love is stage acting. I started doing that when I was 15 at a theater in California in Venice Beach, and then I got the bug right away, and then I went to New York and I studied drama at the Atlantic Theater Company for 2 years, and then I went and did a bunch of plays. I would just jump from one play to the next. And I didn't get into film and TV until I was like in my late 20s. But I was mostly just theater for a long time. Yeah. And
now do you still prefer theater overall? Or is it sort of in the middle?
I think I do, actually. There's something very intimate that the camera can catch that you could never do in a play. The whole sort of inward dialogue that you create in your character on screen, you can't really do that on stage. So I'm finding that really fascinating right now, and so that's been a joy for me. But I did a production of Streetcar Named Desire, where I played Mitch last fall.
Here in New York City?
In Long Island.
Oh, Long Island.
At the Bay Street Theater.
Oh, where's that?
Sag Harbor.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It was great.
Nice.
It was great. Yeah, it was a part of this Literature Live program where they they bus in kids all across Long Island. And I think we performed for like 5,000 students. It's incredible.
Oh.
Yeah. But then they do the evening performances for the adults. And so, yeah, I try to do one play a year. I try to always go back and revisit the stage because I feel like it's really the stage is for the actors,
Yeah.
I get my fix from the stage.
Someone said to me a while ago, I don't know if you agree, that the stage, theater is an actor's medium.
Yeah.
Movies is more of a director's medium. I'm not sure how you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I've heard recently that film has become the editor's medium.
That's
because I
interesting.
feel like editors can do so much with a film. But then again, the directors write by the editor in the editing room side by side, so they work together. But yeah, film is definitely for the directors. And I always feel like when I'm doing a film or a TV show, I'm in service of the writers and the directors. I'm just there to service their project and do my shtick. But with the stage, I really can stand my ground and own myself as an actor.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because just a few weeks ago, I was speaking to somebody and I said, filmmaker is always referring usually to a director, but in a way, an editor is a filmmaker,
as well,
right? Just as much.
I would say that an actor is a filmmaker too. Writers, yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
Wow.
If you work in film, you're a filmmaker.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Do you direct as well?
I don't. I haven't had an itch to do that.
Do you write?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Cool.
I don't. I do. Sometimes, like when I'm creating a character for a film or a TV show or play, I'll do a lot of like journal entries, and I'll try to write like what would I do on one side of the page, then what would my character do, and how are they different, how are they similar. And I would create 3 columns, and so that's kind of my process in the beginning. So I get one of my joys when I book a job. First thing I do is I go to the store and I get myself a journal, and I mark it up and I write the project and the character, and then I just by the end of the film or the play or the TV show, that journal is like covered in coffee stains, marked up, highlighted, stickers and what have you, and then I pop it up on my shelf and get ready for the next one. So
Right.
I do a lot of writing to help me get into the world. But I don't write, I don't direct, I don't edit.
So your passion is
So my
is
passion
acting.
is acting, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my main thing right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you have a role in the future that you aspire for? Like, do you
Yeah.
have a dream role?
Well, yeah, no, I'm developing. My friend, one of my favorite writers in New York. He's from Northern Ireland. His name is Colin Broderick, and he's written this amazing novel called Once Upon a Time in Hell's Kitchen, and we're adapting it into a script at the moment, and we're
For stage or
we're
film?
in development for film, and we're hoping to get that thing up and running and start shooting soon.
Yeah.
But it's the story about the Westies in 1978 in Hell's Kitchen, which is an Irish gang, and it centers around this guy, this boxer from the town named Danny Boy McCoy, and he's fed up with the crime. He's fed up with everything.
This is a true story?
No, it's
Fictional.
It's based on truth, but it's fictional as well. Danny's a made-up character, and he tries to land a fight that will give him enough money to get him and his mom out of Hell's Kitchen, out of the crime, in upstate New York. And but his loyalty to his friends and the gang that he grew up with kind of keeps him back. And so he's conflicted there, and then he's got this love story that he's got on the side there, and then, but it's a great. I'm looking forward to that. That's in the process right now.
And you want to play Danny?
Yeah, I'm attached to play Danny.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that should be fun.
Yeah. So now the this idea that you kind of balance between theater and film. In the future, where do you see this going? Do you think you're going to veering more into the theater as time goes on, or do you want to kind of stay in film?
I think it's going to be a bit of everything. Yeah, I really love acting, and I really love actors, and I love working on great projects, and I hope to be doing plays and film and TV for as long as I can, as long as I can go.
Yeah.
Until people get sick of me. Say, all right,
How do you
you've
see?
seen enough of your face. Off you go.
What's your take on how the industry's going now, with social media stars becoming so popular and kind of taking over much of the entertainment space? I mean, do you think that actors are going to start kind of moving in that direction, YouTube and TikTok
Right.
and all that, or do you think they'll just always remain as two separate entities?
I have kind of like an like an abundance mentality about that. I think there's a place for everyone. I think there's some TV shows that would be a great fit for a TikTok star or a YouTube star. I think there's some great projects that would be better suited for more of an actor with a different background than that. And I think today there's so much content, and there's so many more independent films being made, and there's so many more TV shows being made, that I think there's room for everyone. I think welcome them all. I mean, there's a part for everybody in this business. Yeah.
Well, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Like in this, what I mean by that is if you go back years and movies would come out 60s, 70s, 80s, it was more of a wasn't competing against so much other content on all these streaming networks and everything. So I think a lot of these movies may have stood out a bit more.
Yeah.
Now the market is so saturated with so much content. It's great because it gives independent films and smaller projects an opportunity to be seen. However, at the same time, it's also kind of harder to get out there. So
right.
what do you prefer?
Some of them get buried. I've done a few independent films. It's really about the marketing. I've done some independent films where we just didn't have the right marketing team, or we didn't have the right marketing dollars, and so it just sort of it went up, but it just disappeared. And the only people who know about them are people that we know, and friends that we know, and friends of friends. I think that when you finish your independent film, I think make sure you have a really solid marketing team that can get it out. I mean, getting into the Big Apple Film Festival is a great opportunity to share the project, and if people like it, they'll talk about it, and word spreads. But yeah, I think it's really about marketing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, and one of the things you mentioned was, there's a place for everybody, right?
Yeah.
YouTubers, film actors, stage actors, filmmakers, all this. I think a lot of, aspiring artists, it takes them a while to figure out where their place is. What kind of advice would you give to somebody coming up now trying to determine where they feel their place is? Somebody saying, what should I do? Should I be auditioning for theater, or should I be a YouTuber? Should I be auditioning for film, or should I be on TikTok? Like how do you determine what works for you?
Yeah, I think you learn a lot by doing. I think trial and error. So in the beginning, when you decide to jump into the business, just do everything. Do whatever comes your way. Take every opportunity. If you like it, you don't like it, just do it all. And then you start to see what works for you, what doesn't work. You may do a project, you'd be like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Or you may do something that you just fall in love with. I've known actors who've gone over to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, have gone over to, what's that big festival? Was that in Mass?
A theater festival?
Yeah. And all of a sudden they fall in love with, they realize, well, I'm not an actor, I'm a director. And they start directing plays, and they fall in love with something else. But the best thing you can do is to just get out there and do as much as you can in the beginning. When I first started, I did everything, like everything I could. And then as I started to learn about myself and my place, I started to become a bit more selective.
Yeah, it's true. Like you try
just
different
get
things.
Messy. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah,
because you learn the most by failing.
No doubt about it. You learn more by failing than you do by succeeding.
You do. And then,
That's true.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes you learn things about yourself by trying different things, and that you didn't even know was something you may have wanted to do. A filmmaker may make a narrative film and discover along the way they actually want to be a documentarian. Or something like that, or vice versa.
Yeah. But you don't learn that unless you get out there and get dirty.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think that's the New York way, is just to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more opportunity in certain areas than others? Like, is there more opportunity now for stage actors or film actors or social media? Is there one area in particular where you think there's more opportunity, or is it equal?
Right now, I feel like there's a lot of TV. I feel like the most of the stuff I've been reading has been TV. I feel like there's
streaming series,
like streaming services. I feel like the streaming services are really doing well, and there's a lot of content there. But yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of theaters in the U.S. that are just doing 10 plays a year. and you link up with one of those and you become a member of that team, you can always have a home there. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that I've heard about, the streamers and episodic and TV type stuff, it is more of a permanent type of job, which is good if it can go for a number of seasons or something like that. Yeah. Whereas a film, you work on something for a month, 2 months, and then
it's done.
That's it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's something nice about having a job on TV where you're going to be consistently working every day for 10 months. But you never know if they're going to write you off. So there's always that sort of anxiety lingering on you. But I think work begets work. So if you book a job and even though they let you go after the first season, like you've just done, 10, 12, 20 episodes for this TV show, and now you're out there, and now people recognize you and see you, and then the opportunities for you to work on something else become bigger and more jobs come in. So, yeah. And I've had friends who've been on TV shows and for a long time, and they're like, if I have to say one more medical line, I don't care how much you pay me. I gotta try something new, because we're all creative beings at the end of the day, and we want to have variation. I like film because it's like one and done. You go, you do your 3 months, you give it 110%, you learn something new about yourself, and then you're done. And then until you have to go tour the film, you're free to then go look at something else. Then you get to go and try something different.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was about, you have some friends who have been on a show or a series, and they've been playing the same character, and maybe now they want to try something else. And I'm just curious about your perspective on this. I was having a conversation with an actor, Kelsey Grammer.
Okay.
And we were talking up at the Woodstock Film Festival, and I was asking him about
that festival. I heard it's great.
Yeah, it's a great festival. So I was talking to him up there about playing the same character for many years. He played the Frasier character on Cheers, and then on the show Frasier.
Yep.
And he said he never gets bored of it because he knows there's always a new audience watching. Even though there's a dedicated and loyal audience, there's always going to be someone or a group of new people watching an episode.
Yeah.
And so so I'm wondering if you, as an actor, kind of can relate to that.
I haven't been on a show long enough to experience that, but I do know that like when I was shooting Masters of the Air, we were thrown into a boot camp with 50 actors that I've never met before in my life, and everybody was a stranger and nobody knew each other. And then by the end of the shoot, we were all family. And now we keep in touch every week on WhatsApp, and we follow each other, and we keep in touch with each other's careers, and it's a beautiful thing when you're on a show for a long time. You become family, and you just become so comfortable with the routine. So I can see that familiarity becoming very, very soothing and comforting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of it. There was another actor that I had known who was in, I believe it was Phantom of the Opera for many years. And he was the opposite. He said, I'm done. He said, I've been doing the same thing every single day for the last, 4 or 5 years or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like on Broadway, you really have to do the same thing every night. When you go off and you do regional plays, or you produce your own plays in theaters that you're associated with, you get to really sort of keep it fresh and light every night. But with Broadway, you're on a strict contract, and you do have to do it exactly the same every night. And I can imagine that getting a little bit, but it's a job, you get used to that rhythm.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any projects right now you're going into production on?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to Northern Ireland to shoot a film. They're not. They haven't announced it yet, so I don't know how much I can tell you about it. But it's an epic, and it's got a great team, a great cast involved, and I'll be doing that this summer. Yeah.
Great.
So, when they announce it, keep an eye out. It's going to be good.
Cool.
But that's next.
I mean, looking at your credits, it looks like you always have something, which is great.
Yeah, there's always something brewing.
Yeah, it looks like you always have something in production or moving into production. So that's really great. Yeah. And lastly, do you have any advice for aspiring filmmakers, aspiring aspiring writers, aspiring actors that from your experience that perhaps you could pass along?
Don't wait for your script to be finished to start shooting. Start putting together your team. Your script is constantly changing and evolving throughout production. Rewrites are happening every day, and you're finding new things in the moment, and things don't work out, so you have to improvise. And so if you have a script that you want to shoot, and it's like 70% there, my advice to you is start gathering your team, start sending it out, start raising money, and you notice as you start the momentum, things start coming into place for you. The industry is very supportive of films, and so when you start, things start happening around you in a way that can surprise you. So don't sit around, waiting for the script to be perfect. If you have a story you want to tell, just get out there and start finding a way to do it. All about being productive. Yeah, and proactive.
And in conclusion, I'm just curious, films or plays that have inspired you to want to be an actor?
I grew up watching all the classics. I moved to New York because, that's where all the guys I grew up watching went. Everyone was a part of the actor studio back in the 60s and 50s. You had Brando, Dean, Paul Newman, Clift. I mean, they were all doing this New York thing. So I moved to New York because I watched them, and I was like, well, I was like this 15-year-old kid. I'm like, well, they all went to New York. This must be something here that inspires you. And so I applied to a drama school, and I got it. I applied to two. I got into one. I didn't get into the other one. And I because of those films,
it's interesting. I know so many New York actors and New York filmmakers that have gone out to LA to the industry, but yet you prefer to be here.
I prefer to be here. I think there's a stronger community here. I grew up coming here all my life, and so I always felt like this was going to be my move after high school. And I feel like at this point today, LA is not the same as it used to be. So much is now shooting in Atlanta, North Carolina, Texas, Nashville. So much is being shot in the UK and Ireland, overseas in Canada, Toronto. Like, not much is actually being done in LA at the moment. And so I find, especially with self-tapes and what happened after the pandemic, like, you can be anywhere and have an acting career. I
agree with you. In fact, I was just recently in LA, and I'm looking up at the Hollywood sign, and I remember saying, it's so interesting. It's such a different world now. It used to be, this was where movies are made. This is it. And now it's not like that anymore. Things are made on location. A lot of films are not being made up in Canada. Overseas.
New Jersey is another big one.
New Jersey.
Pennsylvania. You can shoot anywhere now. So I think get used to get a good briefcase. I just got a new briefcase, leather briefcase, get some nice comfortable shoes, a good briefcase, because you'll be on the road. You don't need to be in LA, I think. You don't even need to be in New York, to be honest. I think I've only done in the past year, I've only done 4 in-person auditions. And you can always fly out for them if they're important. People are shooting everywhere now.
Definitely, even theater as well. There was a time you'd come here if you wanted to be a stage actor. I want to be on Broadway. I'm come to New York, and it probably is still the number one place. But there's, the Broadway shows travel now. They're all over the country. They have the tour companies.
I think that there's a romantic idea of LA and New York. Actually, in the history, when they were looking for a place to put Hollywood, they actually were going to do Arizona. But then I think there was a big fire or something happened with the weather, and they decided, I guess we'll go to the beach instead. So it was totally accidental that we ended up in LA. But now with the technology we have and with everything that's been going on, you can really be anywhere and be an actor.
Right.
I have friends of mine who like bought a house in Montana and they've been living there for 5 years. And if they get called in to do a job, then they'll go and leave their house in Montana and go and be on the job. So yeah.
Interesting. I had actually heard that New Jersey was because of Edison was originally going to be the
Hollywood.
Sort of the Hollywood.
Yeah, maybe it was New Jersey.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You know? But no, it's everywhere now. It's amazing. It's all changed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. So that said, I want to thank you very much for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us about your career and about your upcoming film, Martyr of Gowanus.
Yes.
Screening at the Big Apple Film Festival coming up May 12th to the 15th at Look, Dine, and Cinemas right here in New York City. This is Sawyer Spielberg, who is the star and executive producer of Martyr of Gowanus. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you soon.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.